it kind of gives a misdiagnosis of the actual problem in South Africa, which is ineffective and counterproductive government policy.
South Africa is the world's most unequal country, so says the World Bank in a recently released report. But what is driving South Africa's widening wealth gap? Well, joining me to discuss is Gerbrandt van Heerden. He is the Deputy Head of Research at the CRA. So, Gerry, what does this World Bank report reveal about wealth distribution in South Africa?
So the World Bank looked at inequality rates in the Southern African Customs Union, that is SACU. And it found that not only did South Africa, which is a member of SACU, have the highest inequality rate in comparison to the rest of the countries, but it also, that South Africa also has the highest inequality rate in the world in comparison to 164 countries in the World Bank database. The World Bank, for example, said that 80% of financial wealth in the country is held by the top 10% in South Africa. And the World Bank also found that inequality, or the inequality rate in South Africa, has stagnated in the last few years, and that it has increased over the long term since 1994. Now, I've looked at the report, and what I found quite interesting was on several occasions, the report noted that race was the key driver to inequality in South Africa, and that the legacy of apartheid and colonialism is reinforcing inequality in South Africa. Now, granted, yes, apartheid was the origins of all of the socioeconomic problems that South Africa struggled with after democratization in 1994. However, we've had nearly 30 years or 3 decades to rectify the situation. And I think the danger with the language used in the World Bank report is that it kind of gives a misdiagnosis of the actual problem in South Africa, which is ineffective and counterproductive government policy. And there's a risk that the government can use data and information from reports like this one from the World Bank to even expand on harmful race-based policies such as EWC and broad-based Black economic empowerment.
All right, Gerry. Well, the Black middle class is now larger than the white middle class, but intra-racial wealth, so within the African majority, is widening. So there is a creamy layer of beneficiaries, mostly of BE, as you mentioned. What do you think is driving this widening gap in terms of policies? Could you discuss specific policies that might be leading to these disparate outcomes?
So you're absolutely correct, David. There is intraracial inequality that is happening in South Africa. So inequality within the Black population, for example, is growing. And the reason for that is that the government is implementing and keeps implementing policies that are anti-poor. And what I mean with that is policies that essentially lock out poor and working class people from effectively participating in the labor market. Now, the national minimum wage, already at a high level, keeps increasing every year, and that essentially makes labor very expensive, especially for small businesses. The government keeps introducing red tape, which bigger corporations can handle, but smaller businesses cannot. Education is a very, very important tool and useful tool to help poor people climb the ranks in society. But unfortunately, education, we don't see any meaningful reforms happening in the education sector. We've had the same education minister for more than 10 years now, even though the performance of our state schools is severely lacking. So unfortunately, that's another huge obstacle for poor people to improve their circumstances. We're also seeing the government introducing even new legislation that can harm investment and employment opportunities in South Africa. We've spoken in a previous video about the Employment Equity Bill, which President Ramaphosa is soon to sign into law. And what this law is going to do is it's going to give the Labour Minister even more power to set racial quotas by region and by subsector at his own discretion, so he doesn't even have to justify the irrational targets that he may set. And this will definitely scare away investment and harm business confidence. Unfortunately, even though these ineffective policies keep or are the main reasons why inequality are reinforced in South Africa, for several years now, the government has used race or has stated that race and racial inequality is the biggest problem in South Africa. And and based on that narrative, it has promoted harmful racial policies such as EWC and even more BEE. What we actually need in this country is for less intervention in the business environment and for South Africa to become more of a economically free society.
Yeah, Gerrie, I think one of the ironies is that the government puts itself forward as this champion of the poor, a very extensive welfare grant system and very rigid labor market ostensibly to protect workers. But what it does is it actually aggravates many of the underlying problems that cause poverty in the first place. So I think that the government will continue to double down and will also overlook the importance of economic growth in lifting the poor and their standards of living upwards.
Economic growth, that is the key word there. We've seen South Africa experience high economic growth rates in the mid-2000s, and that correlated with a significant decline in unemployment on a consistent basis. And back then, South Africa was categorized as a moderately free economy by the Heritage Foundation in their Index for Economic Freedom. Right now, South Africa is ranked 112 out of nearly 180 countries on the Economic Freedom Index. And we're now categorized as an unfree country or an unfree economy. And that is one of the main reasons why our economy has kept performing so poorly in the last few years. There's just too much government intervention, and that's scaring away domestic investment. It's scaring away international investment, and that has led our economic growth to sputter and to dim, and that is why we see unemployment rates remain so stubbornly high. It's unemployment which is the main driver of inequality, and unemployment is the consequences of bad government policy.
Thanks very much, Gerrie. Let's hand over to you, our audience. What do you think accounts for South Africa's widening wealth gap? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, a quick reminder that the CRA releases a new video every weekday morning at 6 a.m. So if you're new to this channel, please do hit that subscribe button and you will get fresh new insights from us every weekday morning. My name is David Ansara. This is the CRA. Until next time, take care.